The Silent Hill games have always been incredible psychological horror games with deep and complex ideas that drive the narrative, and Silent Hill F is no different. Silent Hill F is a story about Shimizu Hinako, a young girl who has just found out that she's been sold for an arranged marriage. Staying consistent to the theme of Silent Hill, F explores the psyche of Hinako through horrifying monsters, chilling landscapes, and deeply unsettling experiences. Something that F excels at in its writing is the representation of the concept of identity. In psychology, there is a theory about self-concept. I believe that Silent Hill F explores the topic of self-concept in a beautiful and devastating way that ultimately leads to self-discovery. Stop right there. I'm about to get into spoiler territory for Silent Hill F's story. If you haven't finished it, please finish your game or watch your playthrough and then return. Spoilers beware. In order to talk further on the subject, we need to understand what self-concept is. So self-concept is essentially the image we have of ourselves. It can be influenced by many things, such as our interactions with people, our cultures, the media we consume, or things that we identify with. It's one sense of self. Oftentimes, it's something that develops early, but it continues to develop over our lifetime. Examples of self-concept are things like your personality, your interactions, your hobbies, or your roles in life. According to humanist psychologist Carl Rogers, he believed that the self-concept is actually made up of three parts: the ideal self, self-image, and the self-esteem. When these parts are in harmony or disarray with reality, it can affect one's self-concept. So let's quickly break down what these three parts are to get a better understanding. The ideal self is the person you want to be. It is your goals, the things that you are striving towards. It's exactly who you want to be. Next is self-image. Self-image refers to how you see yourself in the current moment. This includes social roles, personality traits, and physical attributes. And lastly is the self-esteem. This is how much you accept and value yourself, which contributes to your self-concept. Self-esteem is affected by things like how people see you, how you might equate to others, and your role in society. Self-esteem is important because it's the crux of your being. It is how you make decisions, how you interact with relationships, and your overall emotional well-being. With these three things in mind, we can understand how they balance the mind and self-concept, depending on whether they are in harmony or if they are in disarray. These are the general and simplified fundamentals of the self-concept. Let's get into how this relates to Silent Hill F. Silent Hill F follows high school girl Shimizu Hinako in 1960s rural Japan after her town, Ebisukuoka, is smothered by supernatural fog and devastated by monsters. Hinako must navigate the horrifying town, fight monsters, solve puzzles, and uncover the mystery of the Dark Shrine in order to survive and escape. The game explores themes of gender discrimination, marriage, child abuse, and more. The game has multiple endings that determine Hinako's fate, which are decided by choices made throughout the game. These endings are more than just different conclusions to the tale. They are their own explorations of the self-concept I have been talking about. This is the general backstory of Silent Hill F. But let's delve deeper. The story of Silent Hill F is driven by Hinako's internal struggle with her arranged marriage. So to set up some background, we need to look at the first ending, Coming Home to Roost. This is the first ending every player who completes the game will be met with. Hinako suffers from a drug-induced breakdown, where she goes on a murder spree, killing an untold number of people at her wedding. But in her mind, she is desperately fighting off swaths of monsters, and so we understand that none of the horrors she is battling are real. This gives us the background that the events that occur in her Silent Hill is her psyche trying to work through her thought process of the marriage, which also coincides with the real world. Honestly, looking at all the endings, we never actually see the real Hinako in the end. We will always only ever see the inside of her mind and how she views herself within her mind. Because of this, we understand that Hinako is an unreliable narrator. The things she experiences are real, and real to her, but they might not necessarily be true to how the real-world counterpart actually sees her. With these things in mind, let's talk about Hinako's version of the self-concept. The story starts out by talking about how Hinako doesn't get along well with the other children because she plays with boys. This is a huge stain on the developmental portion of her self-esteem already rearing. Because she doesn't respect societal norms, she's cast out, and this disrupts her self-esteem, making her feel different. This is a theme that will continue to persist throughout the story. But this is only the beginning of the weight of expectations of others. Our cast of supporting characters are people who are important within Hinako's mind. This means people like Hinako's mother and father, who are crucial in the developmental state of Hinako's self-concept. Then there are her friends: Shu, a boy she has played with since childhood; Sakuko, a young and isolated girl who adores Hinako; and Rinko, a girl who is filled with insecurity and longing. These are important to the continued nature of the self-concept. There is also Fox Mask, or Kotayuki, her betrothed, but we'll talk about him a little further on. Each of these people have their own version of Hinako in their mind, which she interprets through their actions. Hinako's father is a brash man, often drunk and loud, who berates his family. Her mother is a quiet and docile woman, who is often the target for her husband's mistreatment. At the start of the game, we see Hinako's father yelling at her for her supposed attitude. Her mother tries to appease him, but he continues saying that she should be more like her sister. It's here we get the expectation to conform. Her father has a perception of Hinako to be quiet and obedient, like her mother, like her sister. And Hinako does not follow through with that, but the thought weighs heavy in her mind. Sakuko is a girl who struggles with being alone and clings hopelessly to Hinako. When it is revealed that Hinako is going to be married, Sakuko views this as a betrayal, going so far as to call her a traitor. She believed that they would be together forever and do everything together. Really, Sakuko is experiencing the grief of losing a friend, but with the way it is perceived by Hinako, she feels guilty and like a bad person. This betrayal sticks with Hinako. It shapes how she views herself. She thinks she is bad, not worthy, and so this role of traitor stays and begins to shape Hinako's self-image. Rinko is a girl who is struggling with her feelings. She is desperately in love with Shu and wants him to notice her. But he is far more interested in other things, like hanging out with Hinako. Because of this, she views Hinako as an obstacle, even going so far as to wish that Hinako were dead. Except that she recognizes her immaturity and insecurity and knows that it was never Hinako's fault. But that doesn't matter, because to Hinako's mind, Hinako is always the problem, the issue, the obstacle. So she begins to see herself this way, further shaping her self-image with the role of obstacle. Shu is a loyal friend, but also struggles with his own immaturity. He thinks he knows Hinako best and understands what she wants, but somehow is also disrespecting her autonomy. His love warps into something dangerous, and his devotion becomes her undoing. Within Hinako's mind, she is always just his partner, nothing more, nothing less. She does not get to explore herself within that space because, once again, she has a role to fill that Shu has given her. She continues to adjust her self-image based on those around her. These friendships have altered themselves into roles that Hinako must play within her mind, because this is how she thinks her friends must see her. Because of this, her self-image is completely distorted. And with the way she was treated growing up and how her family reacts to her versus her own self-ideal, these roles and how she is affected create immense disarray within the self-concept of Hinako, so much so that she falls apart, or seemingly splits in two. So, to talk about Hinako, we must understand that her story revolves around marriage and her role in society. Marriage, to the main cast of kids, is akin to death. Rinko tells Shu that Hinako is dead, and in Hinako's mind, whenever she sees her sister Junko appears very corpse-like with rotten skin. It's a huge step for them that feels so far away from where they are that it's basically like dying. Hinako especially has strong feelings about marriage. She does not want to be someone's property. She abhors the way her father treats her mother, and never wants to be like that. She does not want to be someone's faceless bride. She does not want to lose her identity. This is the most we see of Hinako's ideal self. Yet the weight of obligations and expectations is heavier than she can bear, and so we find two Hinakos: the Hinako who submits to her role and falls deeper into the bits of her negative self-image, and the Hinako who rebels, seeking to run from these expectations and be her own person, or ideal self. These two things create a negative self-esteem, and so Hinako's self-concept is incongruent. As the story progresses, we see Hinako struggle to escape in the real world, while Hinako in the Dark Shrine world begins to undertake the process of marrying the Fox Mask. Here, we will briefly talk about the Fox Mask and his viewpoint on Hinako. The Fox Mask is his own person, yes, but he also represents society and the expectations of a bride. We never see him act cruelly or misbehave, but he purposefully guides Hinako along to each ritual, unwavering. Fox Mask tells her that her friends no longer matter to her, and she must be rid of them. So, she kills them within that world. By killing her friends, Hinako abandons them to become a proper wife. This symbolizes leaving the past behind to make way for their future. But at this point, their weight is already a part of her. No matter how much she would like to be rid of them, They will always be a part of her mind in this moment. Hinako also undergoes these horrific rituals, with her saying, "I will do what I must to become the perfect person for you." Her esteem is so low that she sees this as her only option. The rituals are as follows. One where she removes her arm and replaces it with that of a beast, symbolizing giving her hand in marriage. One where she is branded with the fox crest, symbolizing becoming one within the clan. And one where she removes her face and replaces it with a fox mask, symbolizing her removing her identity and becoming essentially a faceless bride. She completes her transformation into a white faceless bride monster called the Shiramuku. This reveals that Hinako herself is the monster she's been running from the very beginning. Eventually, the two Hinakos meet, and in order to differentiate, we'll refer to one as bride and one as bird. As I understand it, the bride is technically Hinako as an adult, and the bird is Hinako as a teen. Anyway, the bride tells the bird that she is her, but not her. She does not have Shimizu Hinako's heart anymore. This is her essentially telling her that she has a different sense of self now, or a lack of the ideal self. The bride continues saying that the two of them must fight, the ideal self and this current self-image. Only one can exist between them, and so they must fight as equals. The bride then says she's going to kill the bird, their parents, and their friends too. I think this is the self-image trying to become the ideal. She is trying to remove the things that weigh her down, and she wants to cast them aside, becoming the ideal blank bride. But the truth of the matter is, the ideal self and the self-image cannot exist without the other. All three aspects of the self-concept rely on one another. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The game shows you the outcome of these two iterations and the end of their struggle. So let's look at that. In the aforementioned coming home to roost ending, no one wins. It appears that the bird Hinako wins the confrontation, but the reality is that her mind is too far gone. At this point, the concept of self is eradicated. There's nothing left of her. And as a reminder, this ending is mandatory when finishing the game for the first time. I believe this is deliberate. It showcases just how much turmoil Hinako is in with herself, that it spills horrifically into the real world. In the Fox's wedding, bride Hinako wins. This means she fully embraces her role as bride, and it becomes the ideal self. She still continues to have a negative self-image of what being a bride is, though, as she still views herself as a faceless monster, and in the end credits, her cut-off face is whimpering that she does not want this. She doesn't want to be like her mom. There is still discord in her self-concept. In The Fox Wets Its Tail, bird Hinako wins. She defeats the bride and rejects her fate, and the role her parents wish for her. This Hinako runs away with Shu and essentially chooses her own path. However, this doesn't reconcile her own adult feelings and viewpoints. Rather than trying to figure out what kind of future adult Hinako wants for herself, she runs off. She runs from her low self-esteem and essentially gives up. The geysers begin to erupt, and Ebisugoka is filled with gas. The town must evacuate, and with this, it implies that nothing good can stay. I believe there is still discord in her self-concept. As I mentioned before, Hinako selves cannot live without each other. The ideal self is necessary to the self-image to balance the self-esteem. These endings showcase the downfall of letting either side tip in one direction or the other. In the last, and what is revered as the canon ending, or true ending, Ebisugoka in silence, the two Hinako instead wonder why they must fight, and realize they are being manipulated in both directions. The Tsukumogami wanted bride Hinako, manipulating her into choosing freedom, but not on her own, but through the actions of her friends and the roles they had placed on her. They wanted to remove the power of the Fox clan. The Inari wanted bride Hinako to continue their hold over the town and remain in power. Through their intervention, she must submit to the role society has placed on her. It is revealed that both previous endings are the result of intervention from the gods, or the other clan. The Hinakos eventually reconcile, and they gain the freedom to choose their own future, together as a whole. No one there to pull her in any direction, no roles to fill. This is her ideal self coming to terms with her self-image. Her self-image mellowing out as she starts to have a clearer mind, and the self-esteem returning to a more positive outlook. You could say she is at peace. Or in other words, her self-concept has reached congruence. Silent Hill F is a beautiful story of identity, the roles we play, and the traditions that shackle us. The game does an incredible job at showing us that nothing is as it seems, and the idea of right and wrong are too black and white to exist in a story about the struggles of the heart. The story truly knows that what keeps us up at night are not the monsters that lurk in the fog, but the convoluted humanity of identity we try so desperately to understand. And that's all I got. As with any art, these things are really up for interpretation. How do you feel about mine? If there is a point that you like and agree with, or even disagree with, I'd love to know in the comments. If you found this neat or like to hear me yap, let me know, and leave a like and subscribe, and I'll catch you kittens next time.